Сегодня я взял интервью у создателя «Мести Гальватрона» и задал ему каверзные вопросы, в том числе про возрождение Оптимуса. Будет интересно, поехали.
Hello. This is Carlos from Prime Animations. Want to thank you for having me here and asking me these questions. Essentially, this interview. I apologize for all the mess in the background. This is kind of my man cave. But yeah, thank you so much for your support for the Transformers Prime Galvatron's Revenge movie. I know that a lot of fans are over on that part of the world, right over in Russia. And I just want to thank you all for your ongoing support, and I hope that you enjoyed the movie. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and answer some of these questions that have been provided.
Рэтчет сказал, что есть дух Оптимуса, так же, как и Юникрона. Но ведь Оптимус не бог, как Праймус, чтобы иметь такое особенное свойство. Или, по вашей задумке, каждый Прайм имел дух.
So I guess what I think the person is trying to say is, do characters like Optimus Prime have a spirit just like Unicron and Primus? So I think every being has a spirit, right? Each character has a spark, and I think that spark is essentially a spirit. And as a matter of fact, I was watching, what's the fourth movie? Age of Extinction, and that's what Optimus Prime alludes to when he's talking to Kay Yeager in the garage. He says that he has a spirit, and it contains all of their memories and their life force, and Kay Yeager says, yeah, that's our soul, right? So it's kind of like the same thing, right? So I look at it that when they die, their spirit joins the Allspark, right? So when I say that there's a spirit, each character, yes, has a unique and individual spirit. Doesn't mean that they are a god. It just means, just like us, we have a soul, right, or a spirit. And so yeah, let's see. Hopefully that answers that question.
Почему графика в открытых местностях получилась хуже, чем в закрытых?
So, to give you a full background, so obviously there's a difference. Yes, the scenes, the environments on the inside look much better than the environments on the outside. So Jonathan left us. Jonathan was the main guy who brought us from the old software that I was accustomed to in Softimage over to the new one in Blender. And so he was the one who initially textured everything and so on and so forth. And that was back, he left us back around in between 2019 and 2020. I want to say 2020. So he left us, but the scenes were not properly lit. So Ben joined us in 2023, and he was tasked to do that. He was initially tasked to light the scenes, make sure that the lighting was good, and the render settings were set, right? So that's what was happening. So Ben went ahead and upgraded us. Now, is there room for improvement? Yeah, obviously, but we're limited, right? Ben's not a subject matter expert. I'm not a subject matter expert. And so Ben did the best that he could with what he had. It would be great if we had more help. It'd be great if we had people who actually knew, these areas really well and really help us make it pop. That would have been great, And I asked for help many times on many of my videos. Hey, if you know how to do this, if you know how to animate, if you know how to texture, please join us. And even modeling, if you know how to model, come and help us out. We got very little help. I think if we would have gotten more help, it would have definitely helped us.
Вы не считаете возвращение Оптимуса обесцениванием его смерти в конце полнометражного фильма?
Some people do see it that way, and I understand. But to me, no, because every version of Transformers where Optimus has died, they eventually bring him back. I mean, G1 did it, Beast Wars did it, Robots in Disguise did it. The Bayverse movie did it, right? Transformers Animated did it, even though it was just for a mere seconds, but Optimus dies in the second episode, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe the third. He turns gray like he does in G1, and then he comes back to life after Sari puts the key in him. So we're not doing anything different than what has been done. And as a matter of fact, this entire adventure that Ratchet goes on is it's similar to what Rhinox did in Beast Wars, where after Optimus Primal sacrifices himself, Rhinox just can't accept that, and he goes into, I guess, I don't know, the Matrix or whatever it was at that time, and he manages to bring him back. Now, we did it obviously different because it's a different story, but what I wanted to do is I also wanted to do some type of contrast with Ratchet. Ratchet is a scientist. Typically, scientists don't really have faith, and I'm not saying in a general manner, right? There's always exceptions to every rule, but there's a good chunk of the scientific community that does not believe in some type of faith. So the fact that Ratchet is looking for, first he's looking for information, he's looking for data, then he comes across information, a relic, if you will. He comes across the Covenant of Primus, right? And Primus being a god type of a character, well, now he's on a quest, a spiritual quest, if you will. He's reached the point where he can't rely on science anymore. So he's got to go to the next step. He's got to get a little bit of faith. He's got to put faith in Primus, and that's why in one of the lines he says that it's my faith in you. Right? So there's a spiritual connection there that Ratchet has to go through, which deviates from his scientific one. So that's why I decided to go down that route.
Почему Мегатрон в конце улетел с Деструктиконами, если в конце Восстания Предаконов он отказался от руководства Десептиконами?
So the way I interpret it is that Megatron, at the end of Predacons Rising, Megatron simply retired. He got a taste of what he was doing, and he's like, you know what, yeah, it's not fun being on the receiving end. So he kind of retires. Now, his hatred for what Unicron did to him, I mean, he's full of hate. Obviously, he's an evil character, right? So that's why he tells, when Optimus Prime offers to, extends his hand and says, hey, why don't you join us? He declines. He says, you know what, I just can't join your team, right? I hate you for everything that we've been through. We've been at war for eons. That's not just going to simply get erased, right? Essentially. But he's saying, but what he does say is that my hatred for Unicron, for what he did to me specifically, it's far greater. It's far greater than whatever I felt for you, right? Yeah, there was this battle that you and I had, good versus evil, and you stopped all my plans, but that guy tortured me. That's something very, very different. So that torture compels him. It pushes his hatred up another level, right? And so what he does is he's not going with the Combaticons to start war again and to start, try and conquer Cybertron and try and conquer Earth. No, he's going to go make sure that Unicron doesn't get revived, that the Destructicons don't revive Unicron again. So he's essentially taking off to go stop the Destructicons. It's just going to be the 5 of them, or the 6 of them, 5 Combaticons against those 4 Destructicons, right? So that is what happens there at the end, and that's just the way it goes.
Узнаем ли мы будущее Старскрима и как он спасся от предаконов, если выжил?
Yes. We've already announced that Starscream is in the sequel of the Dinobots Unleashed. So we will get to find out. We will do it justice. I remember watching the episode in Robots in Disguise where they showed how he escaped the Predacons, and that was just not a favorable part in my view. So we are going to do that scenario some justice, and we are going to go back, or we are going to go and kind of give an explanation to what happens.
В сцене после титров колбы с новыми предаконами — это старые или Шокоев где-то нашел новые кости?
These are new Predacons. And if you go to our website, www.primeanimations.com, you'll see all of the characters, all the character designs for the sequel. And we've already revealed the 5 Predacons, new Predacons that are going to come. So those Predacons that you see in that flasks, those are those 5 Predacons, right?
Если не секрет, сколько было затрачено в общей сложности денег на данный фильм?
To be quite honest with you, more was spent than what we got. Right now, we're as of right now, I think we're at 13,700 that was accumulated. And actually, there were some expenses that I haven't even put on there. Actually, I got one of the subscriptions wrong. I put a subscription down for $20 a month, and it was actually $35 a month. I just got billed yesterday on it. But anyhow, so I would say at this juncture, I'm about negative, I would say about maybe under $300. So I would say that I've spent over $14,000 on the project, and that's that we still need to buy the DVD burners, the DVD discs, and the DVD covers, and then the shipping costs. So that's gonna probably be another, I don't know, 500,000, depending on how much the burner is. I really don't know. I haven't looked into it as of yet because I'm trying to get this done, and so that way we can focus on the next part. But yeah, I'm actually negative. I've taken money out of my pocket to pay for this, right?
Известно ли Hasbro о вашем продолжении, ведь оно довольно популярно?
I don't know. I don't know, and given the controversy, that I've been dealing with, any hopes of them recognizing my project is pretty much out the door. We had a big issue with one of our voice actors. He said some really bad things. He's been saying some really bad things for the past several years. I wasn't aware of the specifics. I was only aware of certain things that he said, but nothing that I can directly say, man, that is racist, or that is really bad. A lot of it was back and forth, trolling, if you will. He said this, she said that. That's what. But I met with. I got invited onto a stream on December the 8th, and in that stream he says some really bad stuff. He actually does come out to be a racist, and so after trying to talk to him for 4 days, he just cut communication, and unfortunately I did have to let him go. And I say unfortunately because it's unfortunate. I stood up for this guy, defended him because I thought he was a friend. And again, I didn't see what I'm seeing now. If I had seen now back then, it would have been a different story. I wouldn't have defended it because I can't defend racism. There's no way to defend it, right? So that's the deal. That's the issue that I've been going through. And obviously, people are believing what they want to believe. They're not believing the truth. They're not even believing the examples that I'm giving them or the details. They're just making their own stuff. I've seen some videos out there that it's just like, wow, I don't even know where they're coming up with this stuff. But anyhow.
Вы не считаете игры «Война за Кибертрон» и падение Кибертрона каноном для ТФП? Ведь по сути Спрингер и Hot Rod должны быть на арке.
I don't. We don't consider anything outside of the show as canon. Why? Because number one, like for example with RID. RID happens in 2015. We started this production or story writing in 2014. And so in order for us to follow RID, we would have had to change the entire show. It wouldn't have looked anything like what it did. And so we would have had to change the story around a lot. So we couldn't. And then from what I understand and what I recall, the video games were not really supposed to be part of the aligned continuity. It became the aligned continuity somewhere down the line, and that threw some plot holes. At least for me, it threw some plot holes in there. So we're not taking anything that happened in the video games, nothing in the comics, and nothing afterwards. It's strictly between the 3 seasons and then Predacons Rising. That's what we're sticking to.
Увидим ли мы Мико, Рафаэля и Джека? Будут ли они агентами?
They will return eventually in some capacity, right? I don't want to go into the details of that, but yes, I can confirm that they'll eventually come back.
Откуда Оптимус узнал, где находится Мегатрон?
So Primus gave him the information as he's bringing him back. Signals. He gives him a vision, right? As he's coming back, so he tells Knockout, "I have to go to these coordinates." So Primus gave him those coordinates. And that's what he sent to Knockout, and that's where Knockout sends them to. So.
Праймус смог отделить матрицу лидерства от Великой Искры, или он выдал новую?
I don't know how to answer this because I looked back. I was wondering what this question was talking about. I went back to Predacons Rising, at least here in the US. Sometimes there's different versions if we go to different countries, right? The company will put out a different version for some specific reason, and I don't know what it is. But the version that I saw here in the US, he doesn't take. Oh, I'm confusing. I'm sorry. I'm confusing the Matrix with the Allspark container. The Matrix, the Matrix, the Matrix. Okay, so I can't answer that at this particular juncture, actually. I'd be revealing information, so I apologize. So I can't answer question number 12 for you. Sorry about that.
Сколько времени прошло между концом Восстания Предаконов и вашим фильмом?
We don't really get into a specific timeline. It happens after Predacons Rising. It could be a year or two. I would say maybe a year, somewhere in that, maybe a couple months. But no more than 2 years and no less than a year, right? I would say somewhere within that time range. And I would say closer to the 1 year mark, maybe 1 year, 2 months, something like that, right?
Узнаем ли мы, что делал Мегатрон в изгнании?
Our story focuses on Megatron's new focal point, which is stopping Unicron, preventing him from being resurrected by stopping the Destructicons, right? That's his new focal point. And that's what we'll be following.
Будете ли вы раскрывать подробнее тему киберматерии и синтетического энергона?
To be quite frank, they aren't focal points in our trilogy. Since Cybertron is slowly being refilled with Energon, the use of synthetic isn't needed, but it could come up in some other capacity or some other form, right?
Что было самое сложное в разработке фильма?
So people, especially in the team after the people that came on board after 2023, or after 2020, I should say, we had so many people say they could help us and then they didn't, or they joined to start a task but didn't finish it. So getting commitment and follow through on a voluntary manner has been the most challenging and disappointing. We had several artists lie to us for months. They were telling us that this was done or this was getting done and this was getting done, and they would give us a timeline and they wouldn't meet it. So like, for instance, if I asked them to do a scene, hey, how long do you think it'll take for you to make the scene? Maybe a month, maybe 2 months. Okay, cool. So you give them that month, that 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and then you don't get anything, right? So, and it's difficult to push someone because, again, this is all volunteer. Nobody's getting paid.
Когда планируете выпустить новый фильм?
At that point, I have no clue. The more help that we can get, the faster we can go. But at this point, we're in a restructure mode due to the stupidity of that voice actor. And we're in a restructuring phase. That's all I can say. I don't know.
Ирахнида исцелится от заражения или продолжит быть зараженной?
For that, you'll have to wait for Dinobots Unleashed. We do go a little bit deeper into her backstory, and we add more details regarding her rivalry with Arceus.
Будет ли использован темный звездный меч и звездный меч Оптимуса в будущем?
So I'm going to try that. There was a very fair criticism that I saw that the Star Saber sword wasn't used correctly, and I agree with that. Given the fact that in Predacons Rising, Prime didn't really use it at all. All he did was promote Bumblebee with it. It kind of became an afterthought, and it carried on through as I was writing it. Since it wasn't a prominent thing in Predacons Rising, it wasn't a prominent thing in my film, and maybe it should have been. So that's a fair criticism on my part, towards me. But at this juncture, I don't know. I'll see what I can do as far as writing them in there. And as a matter of fact, the Star Saber wasn't ever supposed to be part of it. It came up. I added it last minute, just because somebody said, "Hey, where's the Star Saber?" I'm like, "Oh man, you're right. The Star Saber. I completely forgot about the Star Saber." So I threw it in there at a moment, and I think I did more harm than good by adding that one scene with the Star Saber in it. But yeah, that one's on me.
Кому бы вы отдали предпочтение как преемнику Прайма? Смоукскрину или Бамблби?
To be frank, neither. I think going down the G1 pipeline, it would be Rodimus, right? We would want to see Rodimus become a Prime.
Ультрамагнус вернется к командованию разрушителей?
So he's in second command now of the Autobots, or actually he's in command prior to Optimus's return, right? And then once Optimus comes back, he takes second in command as normal. And if there's teams that get broken up, they'll get broken up accordingly. And what I'm trying to do is have kind of like Clone Wars, Star Wars, the Clone Wars, where you had generals, you had captains, and then you had squadrons, right? So it's kind of the same thing. So we've got leaders, you got Optimus, and you got Ultra Magnus, second in command, and then you've got a bunch of lieutenants. You got Bumblebee, you got Springer, and you got RC, and then underneath them you got, you know, the other bots. Under Springer would be the other wreckers, which are Bulkhead and Wheeljack, right? Under RC it would, you know, probably be you know, I don't know, maybe Smokescreen, and I don't know who else. I really don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, right? Bumblebee would be probably Rodimus and Smokescreen more than likely, right? I don't know, but as we add on more characters, that'll get fleshed out even more so, right? Hey, so thank you so much for, again, giving me the time and opportunity to come onto your channel and answer these questions for the fans over in Russia, if I'm not mistaken. And I want to say to the folks watching in Russia, thank you so much again for your support. Thank you so much for your kind words, and I hope that you enjoyed Galvatron's Revenge, and I hope you'll continue to stay with us and as we continue to flesh out the story for Dinobots Unleashed. Thank you so much. Till Lawler 1, take care. Peace out. Bye-bye.
Также спасибо Карлсу за то, что согласился дать это довольно-таки большое интервью для моего канала, ответил на все эти вопросы. Надеюсь, что вам было интересно это слушать. Всем спасибо за просмотр. Не забывайте про лайки. Также вы сможете посмотреть сам фильм «Месть Гальватрона» по ссылке в описании этого видео. Всем спасибо, не забывайте комментировать это видео. Пока.